Start with why, because everything powerful begins there. Not with what you do, not with how you do it, but with the deeper reason that pulls you forward when everything else tries to hold you back. A confident woman does not build her life on reactions, she builds it on intention. And that intention is rooted in a clear and unshakable purpose. She does not wake up asking the world what it expects from her. She wakes up knowing what she expects from herself, and that quiet certainty becomes her strength in a world full of noise. While others are chasing attention, she is chasing alignment, because she understands that attention fades, but alignment creates a life that feels real, grounded, and deeply fulfilling. When a woman knows her why, she stops seeking permission to exist fully. She no longer waits for validation before she speaks, moves, or decides, because her decisions are not based on approval, they are based on truth. And truth does not need applause to be valid. It stands on its own. That is why her confidence feels different. It is not loud or desperate. It is calm, steady, and undeniable. You can feel it in the way she walks into a room without needing to announce herself, in the way she listens without trying to prove herself, in the way she acts without over-explaining her choices. Her why becomes her anchor when life tests her, and life will test her through doubt, rejection, failure, and moments where giving up feels easier than continuing. But she does not collapse under pressure, because she is not driven by temporary emotions. She is driven by something deeper. When things get hard, she does not ask if she is capable. She reminds herself why she started, and that reminder becomes stronger than the fear trying to stop her. This is what separates her from those who quit too early. They are driven by outcomes. She is driven by purpose, and purpose does not disappear when results are slow. She understands that without a why. Discipline feels like punishment, effort feels exhausting, and setbacks feel personal. But with a why, discipline becomes devotion, effort becomes meaningful, and setbacks become part of the journey rather than the end of it. That shift changes everything, because now she is not working just to prove something, she is building something, something that reflects who she is at her core. And when your actions reflect your identity, confidence is no longer something you try to create, it becomes something you naturally embody. There's a quiet power in knowing exactly why you do what you do, because it removes confusion, it removes hesitation, and it removes the constant need to compare yourself to others. She is not distracted by someone else's path because she is fully committed to her own. She does not measure her worth by how fast she is moving compared to others. She measures it by how true she is to her purpose. That is why she can move with patience in a world that demands speed, because she knows that rushing without purpose leads nowhere meaningful. And once a woman starts living from her why, everything begins to align differently. Her choices become clearer, her boundaries become stronger, her voice becomes more certain, and her presence becomes more powerful. She no longer needs to convince people of her value, because her life reflects it, and reflection is always louder than explanation. People may not always understand her, they may question her decisions, they may even doubt her path, but none of that shakes her, because she is not building her life on their understanding, she is building it on her truth. That is where real confidence lives, not in perfection, not in constant success, but in unwavering clarity of purpose that continues to guide you, even when the path is uncertain and the outcome is unknown. Choose growth over comfort, and that single decision changes the entire direction of their life in ways most people never fully understand. Comfort feels safe, predictable, familiar, but it also keeps people exactly where they are, repeating the same patterns, living the same days, wondering why nothing changes. A confident woman sees comfort differently. She does not see it as a reward. She sees it as a limit when it becomes a place she refuses to leave. She understands that everything she wants exists just outside the space where things feel easy, and instead of resisting that discomfort, she leans into it with intention. She does not wait for the perfect moment when fear disappears, because she knows that moment never comes. Fear is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that she is stepping into something that matters. While others hesitate, overthink, and delay, she moves forward even when her voice shakes, even when doubt whispers in the background, because she has trained herself to act despite uncertainty. That is where her growth begins, not in confidence, but in courage. And through repeated courage, confidence is built naturally over time. Growth requires letting go of old versions of yourself, and that is never comfortable. It means outgrowing habits that once felt normal, distancing from environments that no longer align, and sometimes even walking away from people who cannot meet you at your next level. She does not make these choices lightly, but she makes them willingly because she understands that holding on to what is familiar can cost her the future she is capable of creating. She is not attached to who she used to be, she is committed to who she is becoming. There are moments when the path feels lonely, when choosing growth means standing apart from the crowd, when it would be easier to blend in, stay quiet, and avoid the risk of failure or judgment. But she does not shrink to make others comfortable, because she knows that shrinking only leads to regret. She would rather face temporary discomfort than live with the permanent weight of knowing she did not try. That mindset gives her a different kind of strength, one that is not dependent on external approval, but built from internal alignment. She embraces challenges not because they are easy, but because they reveal who she is capable of becoming. Every difficult situation becomes an opportunity to expand, to learn, to refine her mindset and her habits. She does not label experiences as good or bad. She sees them as necessary. Even failure becomes valuable because it teaches her what success cannot. Instead of being discouraged by setbacks, she studies them, learns from them, and uses them as fuel to move forward with more clarity and resilience than before. Choosing growth also means choosing discipline when motivation fades. There are days when she does not feel inspired, when progress feels slow and results are not visible, but she continues anyway. Not because it is easy, but because she has made a decision about the kind of woman she wants to become. And that decision is stronger than temporary emotions. She does not rely on how she feels in the moment, she relies on the standards she has set for herself. Over time, this commitment to growth transforms her identity. She is no longer the person who avoids discomfort, she becomes the person who seeks it when she knows it will elevate her. Situations that once intimidated her no longer hold the same power because she has proven to herself again and again that she can handle more than she once believed. That proof becomes her confidence, not something imagined, but something earned through experience. And as she continues choosing growth, her life begins to expand in ways that comfort alone could never provide. New opportunities appear, new levels of self-respect develop, and a deeper sense of fulfillment takes root. She is no longer living on autopilot. She is creating a life that challenges her, shapes her, and reflects the strength she has built within herself. They set standards, not just goals, and that distinction quietly separates them from almost everyone around them. Goals are temporary, they are destinations you reach and then move past, but standards are a way of living, a line you refuse to fall below no matter the situation. A confident woman understands that goals can be achieved and still leave you feeling empty if your standards are low, because goals focus on outcomes, while standards define identity. She is not just focused on what she wants to accomplish, she is deeply committed to the kind of person she becomes in the process. She does not wake up chasing random achievements just to feel productive. She moves with intention, guided by a clear understanding of what she accepts and what she does not. Her standards shape how she speaks, how she thinks, how she allows others to treat her, and most importantly, how she treats herself when no one is watching. This is where her real power lies, not in public success, but in private discipline, because she knows that what you tolerate internally eventually shows up externally, and she refuses to tolerate anything that weakens her self-respect. While others negotiate with their boundaries, she reinforces hers. She does not make excuses for behavior that disrespects her time, her energy, or her peace. And she does not feel guilty for walking away from situations that do not align with her values. That decision is not driven by ego, it is driven by clarity. She has taken the time to define what she stands for, and once that definition is clear, compromise becomes less tempting. She is not trying to control others, she is simply controlling what she allows into her life. Setting standards also changes how she approaches her own growth. She is not satisfied with occasional effort followed by inconsistency. She holds herself to a level of discipline that does not depend on mood or convenience. When she commits to something, she follows through, not because it is always easy, but because she has decided that showing up for herself is non-negotiable. This creates a quiet confidence that does not need validation, because it is built on repeated proof. Every time she keeps a promise to herself, she strengthens her belief in who she is. There will always be pressure to lower standards, to accept less, to take shortcuts, to settle in moments of doubt or fatigue, but she recognizes those moments for what they are, temporary tests that challenge her identity, and instead of giving in, she rises to meet them, reminding herself that every decision either reinforces her standards or weakens them. She chooses reinforcement, again and again, until it becomes second nature. People may not always understand her choices. They may see her as distant, selective, or even difficult. But she is not living to be easily understood. She is living to be aligned. And alignment requires boundaries. It requires the courage to say no when saying yes would be easier, to walk away when staying would be more comfortable, and to remain patient when rushing would bring quicker but shallow results. She is not interested in quick wins that compromise her values. She is focused on building something lasting, something that reflects her true worth. Her standards extend beyond how she interacts with the world. They shape her mindset as well. She does not allow negative self-talk to take control. She does not entertain limiting beliefs for long, and she does not stay stuck in patterns that keep her small. When she notices those patterns, she challenges them, not with perfection, but with awareness and intention. She is constantly refining herself, not out of pressure, but out of respect for her own potential. Over time, this commitment to standards transforms everything around her. The way people treat her changes because she no longer accepts anything less than respect. The opportunities she attracts improve because she is no longer aligned with environments that do not match her level. And most importantly, the relationship she has with herself deepens because she knows she can trust her own decisions. That is the difference between chasing goals and living by standards. One gives you moments of success, the other builds a life of consistency, self-respect, and unshakable confidence that carries into every area of your life. Lead themselves first. And that is where real confidence begins. Not in telling others what to do, not in seeking control over external situations, but in mastering the internal world that most people avoid. A confident woman understands that leadership is not a title, it is a responsibility she carries within herself every single day. Before she tries to influence anyone else, she looks inward and asks a more difficult question: can I trust myself to follow through, to stay consistent, to act with integrity even when no one is watching? That question becomes the foundation of everything she builds. She does not depend on motivation because she knows motivation is temporary and unreliable. Instead, she builds discipline through small, repeated actions that align with the person she is becoming. When she says she will do something, she does it. Not because it is convenient, but because her word to herself matters. That level of self-respect creates a quiet authority that cannot be faked. It shows in how she manages her time, how she protects her energy, and how she chooses her priorities without being pulled in every direction by distractions. There are moments when her emotions are heavy, when doubt tries to take control, when the easier path is to avoid responsibility and delay action. But she does not let her emotions lead her decisions. She acknowledges them, understands them, but she does not surrender to them. Instead, she leads through them, reminding herself that feelings are temporary, but the consequences of her actions are lasting. That awareness allows her to stay grounded even in uncertainty, to move forward even when clarity is not complete. Leading herself also means taking full ownership of her life. She does not blame circumstances, people, or past experiences for where she is. She recognizes that while she cannot control everything that happens, she can always control how she responds. That shift in perspective gives her power because now she is not waiting for change, she is creating it. She becomes solution-focused, resilient, and adaptable no matter what challenges arise. She sets clear boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect what matters most. She understands that without boundaries, her time, energy, and focus would be consumed by things that do not serve her growth. And so she makes intentional decisions about where she invests herself. She does not say yes to everything, she says yes to what aligns. That clarity allows her to lead her life with purpose instead of reacting to everything around her. There is also a level of honesty she maintains with herself that many people avoid. She does not ignore her weaknesses or pretend they do not exist. She faces them directly, not with judgment, but with a commitment to improve. She reflects on her actions, learns from her mistakes, and adjusts her behavior without making excuses. That honesty becomes a tool for growth, allowing her to evolve continuously rather than staying stuck in the same patterns. As she leads herself consistently, something powerful begins to happen. She no longer needs external validation to feel secure because she has built internal trust. She knows that no matter what situation she faces, she will show up, adapt, and do what is necessary. That belief creates a deep sense of confidence that is not shaken by opinions, setbacks, or temporary failures. It is rooted in experience, in proof that she has created through her own actions. People may look at her and assume her strength comes naturally, but what they do not see is the daily commitment behind it, the choices she makes when no one is paying attention, the discipline she maintains when it would be easier to let go. That is the real leadership, not in what is visible, but in what is consistent. And as she continues to lead herself, she naturally becomes someone others respect and look up to, not because she demands it, but because she embodies it, because true leadership is never forced. It is recognized through the way a person lives, decides, and stands firm in who they are, regardless of the circumstances around them. They are not afraid to be misunderstood, and that freedom becomes one of their greatest sources of power. Most people shape their lives around acceptance, carefully choosing words, actions, and even dreams based on how they will be perceived. But a confident woman steps outside of that invisible pressure and decides that being true to herself matters more than being easily understood by everyone around her. She recognizes that misunderstanding is not a sign that something is wrong. It is often a sign that she is thinking differently, growing beyond familiar patterns, and refusing to shrink into expectations that were never designed for her. She does not spend her energy over-explaining her decisions to people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She understands that not everyone has the same level of awareness, experience, or perspective, and trying to force clarity where there is resistance only drains her focus. Instead of chasing validation, she chooses alignment. She becomes comfortable with the idea that some people will see her as distant, others may see her as too much, and some may not see her clearly at all. But none of that defines who she is. Her identity is not built on opinions, it is built on truth. There's a quiet courage in walking your path without constant reassurance. It means making decisions that others question, choosing growth when others choose comfort, setting boundaries that others do not understand, and staying consistent even when the results are not immediately visible. She knows that if everyone agrees with her choices, she is probably playing too small. Real growth often looks unfamiliar, and unfamiliar things are often misunderstood before they are respected. She does not take misunderstanding personally because she sees it from a broader perspective. People interpret others based on their own beliefs, insecurities, and limitations. So when someone misunderstands her, she does not immediately assume she has done something wrong. Instead, she recognizes that their view is shaped by their own lens, not her reality. That awareness protects her from unnecessary self-doubt and allows her to stay grounded in her own direction. At times, being misunderstood can feel isolating. There are moments when it would be easier to explain, to justify, to seek agreement, just to feel connected again, but she resists that urge when it compromises her authenticity. She would rather stand alone in her truth than be surrounded by approval that requires her to be someone she is not. That decision strengthens her sense of self, because every time she chooses authenticity over acceptance, she reinforces her own identity. She also understands that clarity does not always come immediately to others. Sometimes people need time, sometimes they need distance, and sometimes they may never fully understand. And she makes peace with all of those possibilities. She does not measure the value of her path by how quickly others recognize it. She trusts the process, knowing that consistency over time will reveal what explanations cannot. Being misunderstood also frees her from the need to control how she is perceived. She does not try to manage every opinion or correct every assumption. She focuses on living in a way that feels honest and aligned, knowing that those who are meant to understand her will, and those who are not will form their own conclusions regardless of her efforts. That freedom allows her to move with confidence without the constant weight of external judgment slowing her down. Over time, this mindset transforms how she shows up in the world. She becomes more direct, more authentic, and more at peace with herself. She no longer filters her voice to avoid discomfort. She speaks with clarity and intention. She no longer hides parts of herself to fit in. She expresses them fully, even if it creates distance from those who cannot relate. And in that space, something powerful happens. She begins to attract people, opportunities, and environments that align with who she truly is, not who she pretended to be. The connections become deeper, the respect becomes genuine, and the life she builds becomes a true reflection of her identity rather than a performance for approval, because when you are no longer afraid of being misunderstood, you finally give yourself permission to be fully seen by the right people while remaining completely grounded in your own truth. They build confidence through action, not perfection. And that understanding changes everything about how they move through life. Most people wait. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel certain. They wait for the perfect moment when doubt disappears and everything aligns. But that moment never truly arrives. A confident woman sees through that illusion. She knows that waiting for perfection is often just a disguised form of fear, a way of avoiding the discomfort that comes with growth. So instead of waiting, she begins. Even when it feels messy, even when it feels uncertain, even when she knows she might fail, She takes the first step anyway. She understands that confidence is not something you are born with, it is something you earn through repeated action. Every time she shows up despite fear, every time she follows through on something she once doubted, she collects proof. And that proof becomes her confidence. It is not based on empty affirmations or temporary motivation. It is built on real experiences that remind her of what she is capable of handling. That is why her confidence feels grounded, because it is rooted in reality, not imagination. Perfection, on the other hand, keeps people stuck. It creates impossible standards that delay progress and amplify self-doubt. She does not chase perfection because she understands that perfection is not a requirement for growth, it is often the enemy of it. If she waited until everything was flawless, she would never start, never learn, never evolve. So she gives herself permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to learn in real time, rather than waiting until she has everything figured out. That permission becomes freedom. And that freedom allows her to move forward consistently. There are moments when she feels unprepared, when the voice in her mind tells her she is not good enough yet, not skilled enough yet, not ready yet. But she has learned not to trust that voice completely. Instead of arguing with it, she acts anyway. She understands that action weakens doubt in a way that thinking never can. The more she acts, the less power that voice has, until eventually it becomes background noise rather than a controlling force. She also reframes failure in a way that supports her growth. Failure is not something she avoids, it is something she expects as part of the process. Every mistake becomes information, every setback becomes a lesson, every misstep becomes a step forward in disguise. She does not attach her worth to the outcome of a single action, she focuses on the process of continuous improvement. That mindset allows her to take risks without being paralyzed by the fear of getting it wrong. Consistency becomes her greatest advantage. She does not rely on bursts of motivation, she relies on steady, intentional action over time. Even on days when progress feels small, she continues, because she knows that small actions compound. One step may not seem like much, but repeated over days, weeks, and months, it creates transformation. She trusts that process even when results are not immediately visible. As she continues to act, something shifts within her. The things that once felt intimidating become familiar. The situations that once triggered doubt become opportunities to apply what she has learned. She no longer questions her ability in the same way because she has evidence that she can handle challenges, adapt, and grow. That evidence becomes her inner foundation, something that cannot be easily shaken by external opinions or temporary setbacks. She also stops comparing her journey to others because she understands that everyone is at a different stage. Comparing her beginning to someone else's middle or end only creates unnecessary pressure. Instead, she focuses on her own progress, measuring growth by how far she has come, rather than how far she still has to go. That shift keeps her grounded and motivated, allowing her to stay in her lane without distraction. Over time, this approach transforms her identity. She is no longer someone who hesitates or overthinks every decision. She becomes someone who trusts herself to figure things out along the way. That trust is powerful because it removes the fear of the unknown. She does not need to have all the answers before she starts. She only needs the willingness to begin. And through that willingness, through consistent action taken in the presence of imperfection, she builds a level of confidence that cannot be taken away because it was not given to her. It was created by her own choices, her own courage, and her decision to move forward when it would have been easier to stay still.